Greetings, Physics 277 students and anyone else out there in YouTube land who may be watching this video. This will be video 5 in our series on how to use the Bash shell. And today we're going to be talking about being able to communicate with remote computers, specifically how to transfer files between remote computers and your local computer using the SCP client, which enables transfer via the SSH protocol. So today we're going to do this by example. Why might you need to do this? Well, if you have a file on your machine and you need to get it to a remote machine in order to compile it or run it or do whatever on a remote machine, or you have a file on a remote machine that you need to copy back to your local machine, this is something that is a fairly common task that you might have to undertake on a Linux or Unix computer. So there's a fairly simple way to do this. Just like with copying one file to another in the Bash shell using the CP command, on most Linux or Unix systems, you're going to find an SSH copy client called SCP, which stands for Secure Copy. And you can find it on your system, most likely if you're running any kind of a normal Linux distribution. In fact, if you're running an Apple OS X system, you will also find SCP on that machine as well. So let's look at how this would work. And I'm going to do this by example. If here I'm logged into my local machine, and if I do an ls command, and I have a file here named lecture_6.pdf, which is a PDF file that contains my lecture notes for lecture 6, and I want to get that to the remote machine, how would I do that? Well, just like with the CP command, let's look at how the CP command would work. If I wanted to copy lecture_6 PDF to some other file, I would say lecture, if I can type correctly, 6.pdf to some other file name, whatever I wanted to have as the other file name, or to another directory name that would be something different from my current working directory. So I could copy this to lecture 7.pdf, for example, if I wanted to do that. I'm not going to do that here. We're not interested in copying here from one file to another on our local machine here, but we want to copy remotely. SCP is going to work in sort of a similar fashion. I'll type SCP for secure copy, and then I will give it the file name, lecture6.pdf. Now, I have to specify the remote machine that it's going to and what I want it to be named on that remote machine. So let's look at the syntax for that remote machine descriptor. First of all, I need to specify what user account I'm going to be using on the remote machine. And it could be any user account that you have access to. It doesn't have to have the same username as your account on the local machine. So in this case, I'm going to copy to one of the Stony Brook MathLab Linux systems here, specifically Portal. And in order to do that, I have to put in my username on the remote system here. That will be my Stony Brook NetID dswesty. And on the remote system, I have to specify the name of the remote system. That is a fully qualified name. So I'll say portal.mathlab.stonybrook.edu. Now, once I've specified the username and the machine name for the remote machine, I put a colon, and that terminates that part of the specification that is used by SCP. Now I could put a name of whatever I wanted to name it on the remote machine. So let's name it something like lecture 6 new.pdf. All right, so let's do that. I'll hit enter, and I will get a prompt for my password. This will be my password on the remote machine. In this case, it's going to be my Stony Brook NetID password. Okay, when I type that, you notice that I didn't see any characters when I typed the password, and that's because you don't want someone looking over your shoulder seeing your password. And I got this message down below here that told me something about what occurred. It told me the name of the file that was transferred. it told me that 100% of it was transferred. If this is a big file that's going to take some time to transfer, you will see this number here changing as time progresses, so that it goes eventually from 0 to 100% as the transfer is complete. When it says 100%, the transfer is complete. It will tell me how much data was transferred, in this case 448 kilobytes. It will tell me the speed at which it was transferred, in this case 1.9 megabytes per second, and the time it took for the transfer. And it says 0 here, and that doesn't mean it's instantaneous. It just means it's so small that it basically doesn't register at this level of precision. Now, the speed at which you transfer is going to depend on your network capability and the network usage. If you have a lot of network traffic on, it can slow your transfer significantly. Okay, how do I know that file got transferred? Well, I have in this shell window that I'm demonstrating here, I'm remotely logged into that machine here. And if I do an ls there, oh, I'm in a different directory. Let me go to my home directory. And if I do an ls there, then I can see here's the file that just got transferred. It was put lecture_6_new.pdf, and that's what I just did. Now, where did it place it on the remote machine? If I just give it a file name here, it's going to place it in the home directory. Okay. In fact, I don't even need to specify a file name on the remote machine. This could be just like the cp command, where you can give the second argument, can be a directory name, and it will just copy the file to that new directory, keeping the same name. So let me just eliminate this completely, and I could have done the copy this way. Again, prompting me for my password. And the copy was done, and if I go and look on the remote machine here, now there's the file. Well, actually I had that there already. Just to prove to you that it works, let me delete all the lecture note slides here, or lecture note files here. All right, now I have nothing there. Let's do that copy again. And put in my password. And if I do an ls on the remote machine now, you'll see there's the file, lecture_6.pdf. It just placed it in the home directory. What if I wanted to go somewhere other than the home directory? Well, I can specify a path on that remote machine. So let's do that. Let me move into my SB files, and I have a directory underneath that called code, and a directory underneath that called CPP. That's down 3 directory levels from my home directory. I'll do an ls, and you see I've got a file there, hello_world.cpp. We'll deal with that one in a minute. And if I look at my path on the remote machine, it's basically to my current working directory. It is home campus.stonybrook.edu, dswesty, my SB files, code, CPP. What if I wanted to place that lecture note 6 there? Here's how I would do it. All right. I'll take this command, but now after the colon, I will place a path that tells the SCP client where to place that on the remote file system. All right. I could either specify an absolute path or relative path. If you specify something just relative to the home directory, you can do it in the way that you normally would. So I'll say my SB files /code/CPP, and now I'll execute this. All right, and if I go to the remote machine again and do an ls, now you'll see in there with hello world.cpp, I have lecture6.pdf. All right. What if we wanted to copy something back from the remote machine to our local machine? Well, the syntax works very similar, except the first argument this time is going to require you to specify a username on the remote machine and the name of the remote machine. So here's how that would work. Let's copy back here, hello_world.cpp, back to my local machine here, just to show you I don't have that present in this directory on the local machine. So let's say SCP, and then your username on the remote machine, dswesty @ and then the name of the remote machine, portal.mathlab.stonybrook.edu, : now the path to the file that I want to copy on the remote machines relative to the home directory. So I'll say my SB files, files /code/CPP hello_world.cpp, and the directory or file name I want to copy to here, I'll just send it to my current working directory here by using dot to do that, indicate my current working directory. Again, I'll be prompted for my password. Let me put in the password on the remote machine. And it looks like it executed, and if I do an ls, sure enough, there it is. So I can transfer files back and forth between the two machines without any problem, either bringing a local file to the remote machine or a file from the remote machine back to the local machine, either way. In fact, I can do transfers between two remote machines, right? The way that would work is, and I won't demonstrate it here, I'll just show you what the command would look like. It'd be like username 1 at machine 1 colon, and then whatever either your file you wanted, I'll just say file.txt, and then to machine 2, I'd have the username on machine 2 at machine 2 colon, and then whatever I wanted to name it there, let's say file2.txt. Right? So you can do transfers that way. Now it's relatively inefficient because what's happening is the data in this case is moving from machine 1 to your local machine, and then it's being sent back out from your local machine to the second machine, machine 2. All right, so you're involving 3 machines in this transfer by doing this. It's not doing a direct transfer from machine 1 to machine 2, but this capability is sometimes useful. Now you might ask, what if I'm running on a Windows machine? All right, if you have an SSH client that supports SCP, you can do this no problem. If you have by chance installed the PuTTY package to do SSH connections from your Windows machine to a remote machine, you can, within that PuTTY package, find a client called PSCP, and it will be used just like this. You can use it to transfer files back and forth between your Windows machine and a remote machine running an SSH server. So that concludes what I want to talk about here in this episode. We'll talk more about this next time. If you have questions, see me during office hours. If you're one of my Physics 277 students, if you're someone else, you can post a comment and I will answer that. Otherwise, hope to see you here again for the next episode. I will put a link in the upper right corner to the next episode as soon as it's available. And we'll continue this series on how to use the Bash shell. So if you like this, please give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you want to be notified of more videos coming up. Otherwise, we will see you here next time.